Have you ever noticed how some people act strange when you succeed? They smile to your face, but underneath, something shifts. Instead of celebrating you, they downplay your wins, twist your words, or go silent when you shine. But what if I told you these aren't random reactions? They're tactics born from insecurity. It's like a perfume bottle that's gone sour, once meant to spread fragrance, but now every drop carries bitterness. What was created to attract now repels. Or think of a favorite mug with a hairline crack. It still holds for a while, but the flaw runs deep, and sooner or later it shatters under pressure. That's how insecure people operate. They may appear polished, even supportive, but their envy leaks through in subtle ways. Just like spoiled perfume or a cracked cup, their tactics don't enhance, they poison and they break. Insecurity never builds, it only corrodes from within. Because here's the truth, their manipulation doesn't reveal your weakness, it reveals theirs. Insecurity speaks in whispers, sarcasm, and half-hearted support. And once you recognize the patterns, you'll never fall for them again. So how do you deal with people who compete, gossip, and undermine without lowering yourself to their level? Stay with me, because in this video, we'll uncover 8 manipulative tactics people use when they feel insecure around you through the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Let's get started. Number 1. They downplay your achievements. Let's talk about one of the most common manipulative tactics insecure people use. They minimize your achievements. You've worked hard, put in the hours, and finally reached a milestone you're proud of. Maybe it's a promotion, finishing a degree, or even hitting a personal goal you've been chasing for years. Instead of celebrating with you, someone close says, "Well, you just got lucky," or "That's not really a big deal. Anyone could have done it." Those words sting, not because they're true, but because they're designed to make you doubt yourself. Here's the truth. People who downplay your achievements aren't commenting on your success. They're confessing their own insecurity. Your progress threatens their comfort zone. Seeing you rise reminds them of where they're standing still. Instead of admitting their jealousy or their lack of effort, they try to drag your accomplishment down to their level. By calling it luck or no big deal, they're protecting their ego while hoping to make you question your worth. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't let the applause or the insults of others define you. That means you can't give other people the power to determine how valuable your achievements are." Whether they praise you or try to belittle you, neither should dictate your sense of accomplishment. A Stoic doesn't rise and fall with the opinions of others. They remain grounded in their own effort, their own truth. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Daniel, finally launched his own business after years of planning. He was excited, nervous, but proud of taking the leap. When he shared the news with his friend group, most people congratulated him. But one friend smirked and said, "You know, most small businesses fail in the first year. Don't get too excited yet." Daniel laughed it off at the time, but later it hit him. Why would someone say that at such a moment? It wasn't advice, it wasn't concern, it was dismissal. And the more Daniel looked back, the more he realized this same friend had a pattern of minimizing his progress. Every win Daniel had was brushed aside as luck or temporary. That wasn't friendship, it was insecurity in disguise. So how do you handle people like this? First, recognize the tactic. When someone belittles your success, see it for what it is, a reflection of their insecurity, not your value. Second, don't defend yourself. You don't need to explain how hard you worked or justify why your achievement matters. Defending yourself gives their words power. And third, distance yourself from those who can't genuinely celebrate you. True supporters don't shrink in the light of your success. They shine with you. At the end of the day, your achievements are yours alone. Don't let someone else's insecurity dull your pride. If they call it luck, let them. If they say it's no big deal, smile and keep moving. Because the Stoic perspective is clear. External opinions don't define you. What defines you is the effort you put in, the discipline you practiced, and the growth you achieved. And no one can take that away from you. Number 2, they give backhanded compliments. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest tactics insecure people use, the backhanded compliment. On the surface, it looks like praise. They smile, their tone sounds light, and their words are wrapped in something that sounds positive. But underneath, there's always a sting. They'll say things like, "You actually look really good today, better than usual," or "Wow, I didn't think you'd pull that off, but nice job." See the pattern? It's disguised as support, but really, it's meant to lower your confidence. Here's the truth. A backhanded compliment is not a compliment at all. It's insecurity wearing a mask. The person giving it doesn't want to openly attack you because that would reveal too much about how they really feel. Instead, they hide behind jokes or clever wording, trying to make you laugh along while quietly planting seeds of self-doubt. Their goal isn't to build you up, it's to bring you down without taking responsibility for it. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "Mockery is the shield of the weak." Think about that. People who mock, disguise insults as praise, or use sarcasm to cut others down aren't strong. They're hiding their own weakness. True strength doesn't need to belittle anyone. If someone can't celebrate you without slipping in a jab, they're revealing more about their own insecurity than anything about you. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Amanda, had just gotten into great shape after months of discipline at the gym. She was proud of herself and shared her progress with her circle of friends. Most people congratulated her, but one friend smirked and said, "Wow, I didn't think you had the willpower for that. Good for you, though." On the surface, it looked like support, but the undertone was clear. The friend didn't believe Amanda was capable and wanted her to remember that. Instead of genuine celebration, it was insecurity disguised as encouragement. Amanda later realized this wasn't the first time. It was a pattern. Any time she succeeded, this friend's compliments always carried an edge. So, how do you handle backhanded compliments? First, don't take the bait. You don't need to explain yourself, defend your worth, or even confront them if you don't want to. Recognize it as insecurity, not truth. Second, call it out calmly when needed. A simple, "That didn't sound much like a compliment," is enough to expose their intent. And finally, choose your circle wisely. People who truly support you won't need to disguise their feelings in sarcasm. They'll celebrate your wins without hesitation. At the end of the day, backhanded compliments are nothing more than subtle manipulations from people who can't handle your growth. Don't let their disguised insults shake your confidence. Remember, their words reveal their weakness, not yours. True supporters lift you up. The rest, they're just noise. Number 3, they try to one-up you. Let's talk about another manipulative tactic insecure people use. They always try to one-up you. You share a story you're proud of, something that means a lot to you, and instead of celebrating with you, they instantly twist the conversation into a competition. You say, "I finally ran my first 5K, and they jump in with, "That's cool, I actually did a half marathon last month." You mention a new client you landed at work and they cut in with, "That's nothing, I closed 3 last week." Instead of letting your win shine, they need to outshine you. Here's the truth. Insecure people turn every story into a contest. They're not listening to understand or celebrate. They're listening for an opening to prove superiority. It's not about you, it's about their fragile sense of worth. Every time you share progress, they feel threatened, like your growth somehow takes something away from them, and instead of being inspired, they compete, as if life is a scoreboard where they can't let you get ahead. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes powerful. Epictetus once said, "The envy of others does not rob you of your virtue." In other words, no matter how much someone tries to overshadow your achievement, it doesn't erase the value of what you've done. Their envy is their problem. It doesn't lessen your effort, your discipline, or your success. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Brian, was excited to share that he had finally saved up enough money for a down payment on his first home. It was a huge deal for him. Years of discipline and sacrifice had gone into it. When he told a close friend instead of congratulating him, the friend immediately said, "Oh, I bought my second property last year. It's way bigger than the one you're looking at." On the surface, it seemed casual, but Brian realized it wasn't about sharing experiences. It was about one-upping him, turning his joy into an opportunity to brag. That moment stung, but it also opened Brian's eyes. This friend wasn't there to celebrate his progress. He was there to compete, even in moments that called for support. So how do you handle people like this? First, stop engaging in the competition. When someone tries to one-up you, don't try to top their story. It only feeds the cycle. Second, protect your joy. Your achievements don't need external validation, and they certainly don't need to be measured against someone else's. And third, choose wisely who you share with. Some people can't handle your progress because it reminds them of their lack of it. That's not your burden to carry. At the end of the day, life isn't about keeping score with others. It's about staying true to your own path. If someone constantly tries to one-up you, recognize it as a reflection of their insecurity, not your worth. A Stoic understands that comparison is endless, but self-mastery is eternal. Let them compete with shadows. You stay focused on your own light. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 4. They gossip about you behind your back. Let's talk about one of the lowest, yet most common manipulative tactics insecure people use. They gossip about you when you're not around. When someone can't match your presence, they attack your absence. They don't have the courage to confront you directly, so they choose the shadows. Whispered rumors, twisted versions of your words, exaggerated flaws. Gossip becomes their weapon. On the surface, it looks like casual conversation, but underneath, it's their way of trying to reclaim a sense of power they've lost in your presence. Here's the truth. Gossip is nothing more than weakness disguised as control. People who gossip about you aren't doing it because they have facts. They're doing it because they can't stand the reality of your growth, your confidence, or your progress. By talking behind your back, they attempt to shrink you in the eyes of others. They want to plant seeds of doubt so that people view you through a distorted lens. And why? Because it's easier for them to talk about you than it is to work on themselves. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Zeno of Citium once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." In other words, physical mistakes are nothing compared to the damage careless words can cause. Those who gossip don't realize they're revealing more about themselves than about you. They expose their envy, their insecurity, and their lack of discipline. A wise person doesn't waste time with gossip because they know words have weight. And as Stoics remind us, what you say about others reveals the state of your own soul. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Jason, was doing really well in his career. He was respected at work, got along with people, and had built a reputation for being dependable. But one day, he started noticing a change. People seemed colder. Some co-workers avoided him, while others gave him strange looks. Eventually, a colleague pulled him aside and told him the truth. Another co-worker had been gossiping about him, spreading rumors that Jason was arrogant and took credit for other people's work. None of it was true, but the gossip had started to shape people's opinions. Jason was furious at first, but then he remembered something his mentor had told him. Rumors fade when the truth stands long enough. So instead of fighting back with words, Jason doubled down on his integrity, his kindness, and his consistency. Over time, the gossip fell apart because actions always outlast lies. So how do you handle people who gossip about you? First, don't chase the rumors. Trying to explain yourself to every whisperer will only drain your energy. Second, let your actions be louder than their words. People eventually see through lies when the truth is consistent. And third, distance yourself from those who feed off gossip. If someone feels comfortable tearing others down when they're not present, they'll do the same to you. Protect your peace by staying out of the cycle altogether. At the end of the day, gossip is the weapon of the insecure. It doesn't make you smaller. It makes them smaller for needing it. The Stoic way is to rise above, focus on your character, and remember that the truth doesn't need defending, it only needs time. And when all is said and done, those who wasted their breath gossiping will be forgotten, while your actions will continue to speak. Number 5. They question your decisions publicly. Let's talk about one of the most manipulative tactics insecure people use. They question your decisions in front of others. Notice, this isn't about curiosity or wanting clarity. No, their goal is to chip away at your authority, to plant seeds of doubt in the minds of those around you. Instead of approaching you privately, they wait for an audience. You announce a decision at work and suddenly they ask loaded questions that make you look careless. You share a personal choice, and in front of friends they smirk and say, "Are you sure that's the smartest move?" It's not concern, it's theater. Here's the truth. Public doubt is a tactic to weaken your influence. By raising questions in front of others, they shift the focus away from the decision itself and onto your credibility. They're not interested in the answer, they're interested in the effect. They want people to see you hesitate, stumble, or get defensive. And when you do, they've achieved their goal, to undermine your authority without ever directly confronting you. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes crucial. Epictetus once said, "To be provoked by criticism is to surrender to it." In other words, the real trap isn't the question itself, it's how you react to it. The moment you get defensive, flustered, or angry, you've handed over your power. The Stoic approach is to remain calm, to recognize that the intent behind the question doesn't change the strength of your decision. If it was made with reason, it stands. If not, you adjust, not because someone tried to embarrass you, but because truth matters more than pride. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him David, was a project manager at a tech company. He announced a new strategy in a meeting, one he had carefully thought through. Immediately, a colleague raised his hand and asked, "Why would you choose that approach when everyone else in the industry is doing the opposite?" The room grew quiet. It wasn't a genuine question, it was a challenge meant to cast doubt. David could have snapped back, but instead he paused, calmly explained his reasoning, and added, "That's a good point to consider, and if the data shifts, we'll adapt." By staying composed, he turned what was meant as a trap into an opportunity to show strength. The colleague didn't get the reaction he wanted, and the team's respect for David only grew. So how do you handle people who question your decisions publicly? First, don't take the bait. Their intent is to provoke, not to learn. Stay calm and respond with clarity, not emotion. Second, separate the question from the performance. Ask yourself, is there truth here I can use? If yes, address it reasonably. If not, let it slide. And third, protect your authority by being consistent. When people see that you don't crumble under pressure, the power of public doubt fades. At the end of the day, insecure people question your decisions publicly not to seek truth, but to project superiority. Don't give them what they want. A Stoic doesn't hand over control to provocation. Instead, they stand firm in reason, unmoved by theatrics. Your authority doesn't come from being questioned. Response. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 6. They imitate, then criticize. Let's talk about another manipulative tactic insecure people use. They copy you first and then mock you later. At first, it looks like flattery. They start dressing like you, picking up your habits or echoing your ideas. You notice they've borrowed your style, your phrases, or even your routines. But here's the twist. After imitating you, they flip it around and criticize the very things they copied. They'll say things like, "Yeah, I tried that diet you do. It's kind of ridiculous." Or, "I wore something like your style once, but honestly, it looks silly." Their goal isn't to admire or grow. It's to take what you've done, strip it of its originality, and make sure you don't get credit for it. Here's the truth. When insecure people imitate you, it's a silent admission of admiration. Deep down, they respect what you're doing. They notice your confidence, your success, your creativity. But because their ego won't allow them to admit admiration, they mask it with criticism. They copy to keep up, but criticize to save face. It's a two-faced tactic designed to confuse you. On one hand, they seem to admire you, and on the other, they act like you're not worth following. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "Imitation is the confession of admiration." When someone copies you, whether they admit it or not, they're revealing that you've made an impression. Their mockery afterwards doesn't erase the fact that they followed your lead. The Stoic perspective reminds us not to take offense when others imitate, nor to be rattled when they criticize after. Their behavior reflects their inner conflict, not your value. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, had a unique sense of fashion. She wasn't chasing trends, she wore what felt authentic to her. Slowly, she noticed a co-worker, Megan, adopting her style. At first, Rachel thought it was flattering, but then Megan started making little digs. "I don't know how you pull this off. When I tried, it looked so strange. Guess it's not really a professional look." She had copied Rachel's exact outfit days earlier, only to mock it in front of others. Rachel realized this wasn't admiration, it was insecurity. Megan wanted the confidence Rachel had, but instead of owning her own path, she copied and then criticized to avoid admitting she was behind. So, how do you handle people who imitate and then criticize? First, don't get defensive. Remember, imitation is already proof of influence. Their criticism doesn't erase that. Second, hold your ground in authenticity. The best way to deal with imitation is to keep being yourself, because while copies fade, originality lasts. And third, don't let their mockery trick you into shrinking. If anything, their behavior is confirmation that what you're doing is powerful enough to shake them. At the end of the day, people who imitate you and then criticize are trapped in their own insecurity. They want what you have, but they don't want to admit it. The Stoic way is to recognize the truth behind their actions and remain steady. Let them copy, let them mock. You keep living authentically because your consistency is something they can never duplicate. Number 7. They play the victim around you. Let's talk about one of the most emotionally manipulative tactics insecure people use. They play the victim. Instead of celebrating your growth, they shift the spotlight back onto themselves by exaggerating their struggles. You share good news about a promotion, and suddenly they sigh and say, "Must be nice. I never get recognized for anything I do." You talk about your personal progress, and they counter with, "Yeah, but you don't know how hard my life has been." It's not about empathy. It's about stealing your moment and making sure attention swings back to them. Here's the truth. Playing the victim is a tactic to avoid responsibility while regaining control of the room. By painting themselves as helpless or unfairly treated, they turn every situation into a pity contest. Instead of addressing their insecurities, they use guilt to make you feel bad for succeeding. It's not that they can't be happy for you, it's that your success reminds them of their excuses, and rather than face that truth, they shift the narrative into their suffering. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes essential. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Blame is the tool of the weak who refuse to grow." Playing the victim is exactly that, blame in disguise. Instead of taking ownership of their choices, they blame circumstances, people, or fate. But the Stoics remind us, life is not about what happens to you, it's about how you respond. True strength is found in responsibility, not self-pity. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Kevin, was thrilled when he landed a new role at his company after months of hard work. At dinner with friends, he shared the news, expecting celebration. But one friend immediately said, "Of course you'd get that. People like me never get those opportunities. I always have bad luck." The tone wasn't supportive, it was resentful. Kevin realized that this wasn't about empathy, it was about guilt-tripping him into downplaying his win. Over time, Kevin noticed the same pattern. Every time he made progress, this friend would respond with a story of how life had been unfair to them. It wasn't about sharing pain, it was about dragging Kevin back down so he wouldn't stand too tall. So how do you handle people who play the victim around you? First, don't take the guilt they hand you. Their struggles are real, but they're not an excuse to diminish your growth. Second, set emotional boundaries. You can show empathy without surrendering your joy. Acknowledge their feelings, but don't dim your light. And third, don't get pulled into their cycle of blame. If someone refuses to grow, no amount of pity will help them. Growth is their responsibility, not yours. At the end of the day, insecure people play the victim because it shifts power, but you don't have to give it to them. Celebrate your wins unapologetically, while remembering that their self-pity is not a reflection of your success. The Stoic path is clear. Blame and excuses are chains, while ownership and responsibility are freedom. Let them cling to pity. You keep moving forward in strength. Number 8. They withhold support when you succeed. Let's talk about one of the quietest yet most painful tactics insecure people use. They go silent when you succeed. You achieve something meaningful, you share the news, and instead of encouragement, they vanish. No congratulations, no recognition, just distance. It's as if your success somehow offends them. Where you expect applause, you're met with silence. Where you hope for pride, you see cold detachment. This isn't an accident, it's calculated. By withholding support, they're hoping your shine fades without acknowledgement. Here's the truth. Silence in the face of your success is a form of passive aggression. Insecure people know that praise fuels confidence, so they starve you of it. They don't want to add to your momentum, so they withhold encouragement, pretending they forgot or that it slipped their mind. But underneath, the truth is clear. Your growth reminds them of their stagnation. By staying quiet, they think they can minimize your joy. This is where Stoic wisdom guides us. Seneca once said, "Associate only with those who rejoice in your progress." Think about that. If someone can't celebrate your wins, they don't belong in the inner circle of your life. True friends, true allies, will clap when you rise, not because it benefits them, but because your success makes them genuinely happy. The Stoic way reminds us to judge people not by their words alone, but by how they respond to our growth. Indifference, when celebration is deserved, speaks louder than criticism ever could. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Natalie, had been working tirelessly on a certification program for her career. When she finally passed, she shared the news with her close circle. Most friends sent messages of encouragement, but one of her closest friends said nothing. Days passed, silence. When Natalie finally asked about it, the friend shrugged and said, "Oh, I saw it, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal." The truth was obvious. It was a big deal, but the friend couldn't bring herself to celebrate because it highlighted her own lack of progress. Natalie realized that silence can sometimes cut deeper than words. So how do you handle people who withhold support when you succeed? First, stop expecting enthusiasm from everyone. Some people simply can't give what they don't have. Second, take note of who claps when you win. Silence is information. It shows you who's truly happy for you and who isn't. And third, invest your energy in those who celebrate with you. Life is too short to keep proving your worth to people who pretend not to see it. At the end of the day, withholding support is another mask insecurity wears. It's not your responsibility to make them comfortable with your growth. The Stoic path is simple. Stay grounded in your own effort, surround yourself with those who rejoice in your progress, and let the silent ones fade into the background. Because true supporters don't stay quiet when you rise, they rise with you. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.